Welcome to Chicago Bulls Chat with C-Red UK. This podcast is part of the Fans First Sports Network. Wherever or however you're listening, make sure to rate, review and subscribe. It helps us out and means you never miss another episode. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave some comments for us to get back to. And for all the C-Red UK action, check out the Discord channel and across the socials. Now, over to your hosts, Matt Hearn and Neill Dunn.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Matt, and as usual, joined by Neill. How are we doing, Neill?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty excited. Can't think why.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, maybe
at some point. So yeah, we'll get straight into it. Obviously, Bulls wrapped up preseason at the weekend, and we are ready to go into the regular season. So obviously, our last episode we did just before the Timberwolves game, didn't we? And we're not going to go too much into the games, but since then we had the roster updates as well. Obviously, the roster has now been finalised, and it went the way we kind of expected and said last week, with Onur Bitim and Kenny Lofton Jr. waived on, was it Thursday, I think, ahead of the Cavs game. Which we kind of said, and we said at the time, a bit gutted for OB in particular. Had high hopes for him. I think his game's probably more suited to the European game. He probably finds his way back here into Europe and probably into Turkey, and just continues to have a successful career over this side, basically. Probably stands to make more money doing that as well than
probably
floating around G leagues and what have you. So, and then obviously on Saturday we got the news confirmed that EJ Liddell had secured the final two-way slot alongside Adama Sanogo and DJ Stewart, and then we kind of all expected it, and it just seemed to not be getting announced, but finally got announced last night that Taylor Horton Tucker is a Chicago Bull. I'm sure we're going to speak a little bit more about him in particular as we sort of finalise the preseason stuff, but yeah, it's pretty much as we expected.
Yep.
So
pretty much. And on the Taylor Horton Tucker thing, I know we'll talk more about his game and stuff, but I love the fact that he came out and said it was a dream come true for him to be back in Chicago and, you know, be cemented as part of the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah. So then, I mean, obviously the last two preseason games, 2 wins. Against, obviously, first up was Timberwolves, 125-123 win. And then an overtime, because that was just what we needed on Friday or Saturday morning, whenever it was some preseason overtime.
Can't beat it.
Especially the fact that it was a load of scrubs playing and Taylor Horton Tucker. You know, so that was fun to watch. But anyway, they come out 139, 137 winners. Again, and I mean, it's pre-season. Take from it what you want to take from it is what we've said all along. Finished pre-season 3-2. Obviously, 2 wins over Cavs, the win over Timberwolves, lost to Bucks, lost to Grizzlies, and I'd say really that Grizzlies loss was the only one really that I don't know. You kind of could see a lot of negatives because it was against Grizzlies, G League, third string sort of players, whereas all the other games have been against starter level, apart from maybe the first Cavs one where everyone's just getting a feel for it and stuff like that. But against Bucks, as we mentioned last week, obviously they had the starters out. Timberwolves ran the starters against us, and I think we were kind of dominating against them really. And then against Cavs, looked like we were going to struggle to get the win in that one. But then by the time the starters come to sit, or our starters come to sit, we were actually winning, weren't we? And then Cavs kept their starters in that little bit longer, and eventually that guy, Taylor Horton took it to overtime. But I mean, rather than delve too much into the games, what takes do you have from pre-season, either positive or negative?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is not. It's not obviously a positive or a negative, depending on what angle you take with it. But this Bulls team is potentially better than first thought. Now, like I say, that could be taken as a negative because that could potentially lead to more wins and being further away from a decent pick in the draft. But it also means that we may have some better basketball to watch and enjoy. Now, it may not necessarily lead to wins per se or many more wins. It could very well just be more competitive games. Dare I say the word "C," and that's better for everybody involved, right? It's better for us anyway, getting up at stupid o'clock in the morning and watching some entertaining basketball rather than pile of shite. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't actually given our expectations for the season. We'll get into that
No.
later on. But I think we were pretty much on par with the majority of Bulls Nation because mainly because we didn't know. We didn't know what to expect. You're just
Yeah.
following these so-called experts' narratives of, well, there's no defense. There's, so and so can't hit a 3-pointer. We played slow last year because we had DeMar DeRozan, blah blah blah. Well, it's like we haven't got a majority of that stuff now. I think we come out of pre-season as one of the highest in pace or playing at pace.
Yeah. The highest. The
Yeah,
highest in pace, I think it was. Yeah.
which yeah, all right. We haven't got DeMar DeRozan, but we've now got pace. We've also
Yeah.
got Zach LaVine back, who, if anyone's going to play at pace, it's Zach LaVine. If anyone's going to get out and get into a decent 3-point position, it's Zach LaVine. And if it's not Zach
Yes.
LaVine, it's Kobe White. So, and then you've got Josh Giddey who can find them, or Lonzo Ball who can find them. So, like I say, nobody knew. And that seems to be the thing with Bulls. And they get wrote off and then they seem to get a bit of a chip on the shoulder. Like when we first brought in DeMar and all these guys and then went to, top of the East and then it all fell apart. But anything Bulls seem to do is met negatively by the experts, the media, whoever. And
Yeah.
it
Always.
kind of puts a dampener on the season before it's even started. And I mean, I think pre-season has changed a lot of people's expectations. Not necessarily. I think they're expecting more from Bulls now, but that's not
I
necessarily
think
a
so.
good thing because there's a chance we lose that top 10 pick next season now, which I think I've said it before on the pod. I don't understand what Bulls Nation are wanting. They're finding the flaws in people like Josh Giddey's game. The fact that we didn't, I don't know, bring in another big or whatever. Vooch is still here, Zach's still here. And then it's like, this team's only going to win 25 games. Well, is that not what you want? Is that
Yeah.
not what you've been shouting about for the last however many months? Is that you don't want this team to win? And then when it comes down to it, it's like, well, I don't want them to win, and I don't want them to get to lose that top 10 pick. And it's like, well, I just don't know, And for me, Bulls aren't set to tank. I don't think that's even on AK's sort of radar. He's said that all along, and I think the way the team's set up, it's set to be as competitive as can be, basically. And I don't think it's a team that AK actually wants because it's still got Zach, it's still got Vooch, So I think that's changed the way things are going to pan out for us. I mean, in terms of Is there anything you saw in pre-season that you wanted to see?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to see the young guys getting some decent tick so that we could get a bit more of an idea of what we have and what they look like playing together. And we definitely got that. And I kind of liked what I saw for the most part as well. It was absolute Swiss cheese on defense, which we expected it to be. It was awful. At times it was laughable defense. But offensively, it's not too bad. I mean, it certainly has moments where it's better than not too bad. It's actually thoroughly enjoyable. Well structured, fast paced transition offense, and I liked it. Um, it's what I want to see going forward from the team to keep playing at pace. I think I put it into the live thread in the last game. I just love the pace that they're playing at.
Mm.
And that's what I want to see. I think that's what a lot of people want to see is to see them playing fast. I mean, what's the point of them training hard and being so young if they're not going to use that to their advantage, right? And the advantage is going to be fitness and speed. So that's the way they need to play. Now they do need to try and do a little bit more with the defense because at the moment it's just terrible. It's going to be a case of just trying to outscore what gets scored against you because you can't stop anything. But that being said, there were elements of the defense that I quite enjoyed too, and I gave me a little bit of hope. One of which was I actually thought that Mattis is quite a good defender, and there are elements of Giddy's defense that I like, and elements that I absolutely detest. But he does look to strip the ball, and he does look for blocks on the help side defense, which is pretty good. But his on ball is just terrible. He just steps aside, right? We talked about that in the last pod. But things like you've got Io, who's looking good on defense. You also have Julian Phillips looking pretty strong on defense as well. And having Lonzo back as well, I actually thought Lonzo Ball done a good job of being able to move the way he used to move. And I really didn't think we'd see that out of him. I thought he'd be quite tentative and careful. No, he was just playing like he used to, which was great.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not to get too far into the individuals yet, but just going along the defensive thing that you've just mentioned, one player who stood out to me defensively in particular, or seemed more locked in defensively, should I say, was Zach LaVine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to find it now, but I'm sure him and there we go. Yeah, him and Vooch led Bulls through preseason in steals. You know, both
Yes, that's
had
right.
5 each over the obviously 4 games that they played. And Zach just, I don't know, he wasn't amazing defensively, but he was just more of a nuisance. I think he was just
Mm-hmm.
seems locked in on both ends, and I think that's something that has Bulls fans worried. It's what we wanted to see, but it's got Bulls fans worried because it's like we don't want to win. But
Right.
obviously, that's the thing with this roster, the way it's set, and certain players on it. This is what I mean about this. They're not set to tank, is because they're all playing for something, or the majority are playing for something. You know, you've got Zach, he's playing to boost his value back up. You've got Giddy, who we've now found out is playing to earn his contract, that 30 million
Right.
that he reportedly wants, but that come from Jake Fisher, so it's probably not true. You know, you've got obviously Vooch, who at the end of this year has only got a year left. So what's he playing for this year? Do you know what I mean? Same with
Mm-hmm.
Kobe,
Potentially playing for his
Ayo.
final contract wherever it is.
Yeah, Kobe, Ayo, they're playing for their next big contract, and they want it to
Yeah.
be big, and it deserves to be big the way they're playing. You got Jalen Smith coming in, that proving that what first of all deserves to be in the league, because that's something that's gone round about him, that he's not good enough and stuff like that. But he's also playing to start for starter minutes. If Vooch is done at the end of his contract, there's only one person at the minute who's going to step up, and that's Jalen Smith.
Right.
So there's too many players on this roster that are playing for something, and it leads to a lot of unanswered questions, as we keep saying, and they're only going to be answered through these next 82 games.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, may still not be answered because it's just obviously the way the league works. Now, obviously, staying with pre-season, individual wise, who stood out to you, or what stood out to you about certain individuals?
That's ironic because I was going to ask you the opposite end question, so we'll get to that in a minute. Who stood out to me? Okay, there was only one that stood out head and shoulders above all the rest, even though there were a few that impressed me, and the one that stood out above all others was Salem Horton Tucker. THT. I mean, this guy came in and he literally just said, that 15th spot is mine and I'm taking it. And that's exactly what he did. And you have to be impressed with him. You have to. Like, I mean, as much as we were joking about him just being so explosive and everywhere and it was chaos, it was fun chaos. It was it was enjoyable, and he absolutely affected the results of what, two, maybe even three of the games that they played during the week.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, we sort of laughed about it that first game because it was chaotic, and then after that, it was like, I want to actually see him. I want
Yeah,
to see what he, he's. I think they put a thing out yesterday, obviously with a complete roster, and he weighs in the second highest behind
that's right.
Vooch, and he's only 6'4". You don't want that running at you, do you?
You don't. And he can run at you fast, even though he looks like he
Yeah,
needs a Zimmer frame.
and it's like I've said to you in the chats, and I've said it on the Discord that although he's signed as the 15th man, I don't think that's his role on the team. I think
Yeah.
he's going to fit higher than that. I think you like to think he's above Javon Carter for a start
Oh, please.
in
Although
getting
Javon didn't
minutes.
have the worst preseason.
I think he had that last season as well, though, didn't he? A pretty decent
Mm,
preseason, and then so I mean, I think to me he's competing with Javon Carter for them sort of mop up minutes. And the one thing I did say to you is I think the games where Lonzo doesn't play, that's where THT gets his minutes as that second guard off the bench.
yeah.
Um, I mean, he's done it before. He's, he's one of these typical AK signings of young with NBA experience, and he's shown through preseason that he can do it, and it's something I'm looking forward to. I think defensively he's not great, but he's solid enough. I say he's a
Mm-hmm.
disruptive defender more than anything. Just because of his
Yeah.
size, he's just able to just disrupt plays and grabs the odd steal because he's just massive for his size, his position, and stuff like that. So, I mean, for me, yeah, THC stands out. Obviously, we had the thing going in the Discord, the top three, and I
Mm-hmm.
think he finished fifth on that. The top four I put out into a poll on Twitter yesterday. It was Zach, Matas, Lonzo, and Ayo. For me, the player who stood out is actually Zach because we saw what we wanted to see from him.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, defensively he seems locked in. Offensively, he seems locked in, but he also seems willing to allow others to eat as well. Basically, whether
Yeah.
it's Kobe, whether it's linking well with Josh Giddey, whether it's letting Vooch have his sort of moment. Um, I mean, obviously there are other players who you can look at that stood out. Another one I don't think has had enough praise is Vooch.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah. A bad first game, then after that he was good.
yeah. I mean, we've got what we want from Vooch or what we expect from Vooch, and that's that lazy double double. And what I mean by lazy is you don't notice him doing it. You look at the box score at half time and he's on like 12 points and 8 rebounds or something. It's like, when did he do that? I can't remember him. But to me, that's not a bad thing. That if Vooch can get 18 points, 12 rebounds a game, and you don't notice him doing it, I'm happy with that. It's when he's getting 9 points a game and he's bricking 7 threes. That's the Vooch that irritates people. I think Jalen Smith, if it wasn't for him in that fourth quarter against Cavs, he kind of took over that, didn't he? Again, similar to Vooch, don't want to see him take a 3. 0 of 9 for the preseason. And was it Julia Poe that put the video out on Twitter yesterday where him and Javon
those shots. They looked awful.
It was slow and everything, weren't they?
Oh, slow. The mechanic, his feet. What were his feet doing? Like one was pointing at the basket, and the other one was pointing to the exit. But he came in to the Bulls as a pretty decent 3-point shooter, though, right?
Was it 42% or something last year?
How? What's gone wrong? Because
the thing is, he takes them at the right time as well, though. That's the annoying thing. You know, it's
true.
It's not like, like sometimes with Vooch, you're thinking, Vooch, why are you standing there? Why are you waiting for the ball there? But like Jalen Smith seems to be able to just take it within the flow of the game, and because obviously they're trying to play faster, it's right. I've got the ball. I'm going to chuck it, basically. And I don't know if that's maybe what is wrong with him, or I just
don't know.
I mean, other aspects of his game I've been impressed with. His sort of defense has been solid. There was that one, was it against Cavs, where Kobe or Ayo with the outlet pass, and he was gone, and that just adds something a little bit different, I think, coming off the bench.
It does, because it's something that we're not really used to seeing from Vooch. So to see a centre actually like run the floor, although you would see it occasionally from Drummond, but to see a centre that's prepared to run the floor is great.
Yeah, and then obviously Kobe, Ayo, I think we just saw what we kind of expected to see.
Yeah,
Giddy sat the Cavs game. Still need to see stuff from him. I think I still don't think he's. Yeah, I don't think he's properly settled yet. That's the thing, and it's only preseason. You can't. All these fans that are writing him off after 5 or 4 preseason games, saying that he don't fit with the team, start Ayo, blah blah blah. It's like it's preseason, and he's not had a set sort of team around him. Basically, it's changed every game. The minutes have changed. So when you actually see him in the whole rotation and stuff like that, then that's when you can judge him. Obviously, the young core, I spoke about them before. Obviously, DT, Buzelis, Julian Phillips. I think Julian Phillips is the one that stood out the most, probably out of the young core. We've spoke about him in last week. And then one player that we've never actually, well, we have spoken about, but not in a game sense since we've been doing this podcast. And that is Lonzo Ball. We saw the return of Lonzo Ball. And Bulls fans loved it. Obviously got the ovation there. Why can't I say it? Ovation that he deserved. Obviously expected.
Still wasn't quite right, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, I couldn't be bothered. I've been up since 4 o'clock.
You got a standing ovation.
That's the word. That's what I said.
That is what you said. That's what's wrong with it. Ovation.
Yeah, that's how we say it up north.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, that old excuse.
But it's kind of added to Bulls fans' anxiety, should we call it, that we're going to be better than we want to be
It's true.
because he's looked good. Obviously, I was not as excited as most about his return. I'm still not that excited because of a question you asked me earlier on is kind of proved my point of why. I mean, I get it. It's like nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going on. I mean, I think, is it Casey Johnson's put out is likely to get 10 to 16 minutes against Pelicans tomorrow. But then, well, I'll let you ask the question that you asked me before.
My question to you was, with Lonzo not playing back-to-backs, as we know it's been stated, does he play Friday against the Bucks or does he play Saturday for the home opener?
Who knows?
Although I think it was Casey who added on top of that tweet again,
I saw that,
and said that it was most likely that he will rest on Friday and be ready to play then on Saturday night in the home opener. So
yeah, which obviously you'll be happy about, and I think that's probably why you actually asked me the question in the first place.
It might have been what triggered it, yeah. Yeah, no, I'd like to see him play, definitely, even if it's only for 10 to 16 minutes. I would certainly like to see him doing his thing on the floor because, as we've discussed before when we were in Paris and you asked me when I came back from Chicago the last time, you do kind of get a different view of what's going on the court when you actually courtside watching the game. So I'm hoping to get a real look at the way he plays, especially kind of off the ball stuff. And I'm really interested to see how that works out. So hopefully he plays Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, he looks.
Just in case I hadn't mentioned that.
Yeah, he looked good in them 2 games. I mean, obviously in the limited minutes, and I think obviously as long as he stays healthy, that's the main thing.
Of course.
I think he learns to adapt his game slightly as well. I think he's still trying to figure out what he can and can't actually do. And if he comes in and can be solid enough defensively and pretty much the spot up 3-point shooter that's how he seems to have been. I mean, do you really want to see him busting towards the rim and trying to be athletic and diving into the bench and stuff like that? It's
diving into the bench, looking for a lob. No, no, too soon. At least test the water a little bit.
I mean, he doesn't need to be able to run to be able to pass. That's one thing that Lonzo's never had to do, because his passing is that good. So if he can limit the running, I know it's hard in a basketball game, but you kind of, by limiting running, you're kind of limiting contact as well, aren't you? And I think that's how he expands his career. Basically, he's just got to adapt his game, and be interesting to see how it goes. Like I said, I'm still not overly excited that he's back, but I'm intrigued still.
Okay, well, that's something. But let me ask you this, right? And I still need to go back onto my previous question as well. But let me ask you this on Lonzo. However Lonzo looked and however Lonzo played in the games that he played in, surely you could see the effect it had on the entire team just by him being on the floor. And I thought that was a thing of beauty. The way it just lifted and elevated everybody that was playing in a Bulls jersey.
Yeah, definitely. But then it still goes back to my, I guess, I don't know, my thoughts on it is
reservations.
Yeah, like, that's great, but what does it do for the future of this Bulls team?
Makes the games more competitive, but they still lose, hopefully.
Okay, then, so come the end of the season, whatever the record is, where are we at next season? Where's Lonzo at?
Yeah. See, That's a tomorrow problem. That's not a today problem, as far as I'm concerned. Let's take it one step at a time, and that's how I feel about this season. It really is. It's a real each game as it comes, each day as it comes, to get through and tiptoe through this season, because it's such an unknown now with Lonzo, with Zach, with what's going to happen with Vooch next year. And like you say, you've got Kobe and you've got Io that are due contracts. You've got Giddy who's playing for a contract. There's just so much unknown about what's going to come at the end of this season that I just want to get through this season. And once I get through this season, I'll have a better idea of how to answer that for you.
Yeah, I think it is a case of just taking it game by game, as they're going to be doing with Lonzo. Or,
Yeah.
I think as fans, that's what we've got to do as well. And I mean, it's hard not to get ahead of yourself and start looking at what deals need to be made. Whether it's Zach, whether it's Lonzo, whether it's obviously the Giddy extension, whatever it happens to be. Because, like you just said, that's what everybody's playing for. They're all playing for one thing or another. So,
yeah.
So, what was your other question then?
Yeah, I was going to say, to dial it back to the original question. Well, you asked me who stood out for me. Let me ask you, who disappointed you during preseason the most?
You got players like Chris Duarte, but I didn't have any expectations. As much as I don't think it was really his fault. I think because he's picked up a bit of a knock. I think he's only just come off the IR as well, which, as Casey Johnson's just tweeted out, is completely clean for the first time in God knows how. Which, yeah.
Wow.
It's Dale Terry.
Okay.
And like I said, I don't think it's his fault. I think the injury, it was like knee soreness, I think he was out with on it. So he actually only played 3 games, did he, of pre-season?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he sat out the last 2, didn't he?
Yep.
I think. He looked good, and I saw what I wanted to see from him, apart from the 3-point shot. I think he only hit one of however many it was. But I just don't think we saw enough of him for what I wanted to see from him, if that makes sense.
Right.
I didn't see anything different from him. His handles looked improved. But that was the only thing I could say that looks different about him. Everything else was there that I already knew was there in his game. Energy, solid defense, the ability to pass. And I just don't think he was given enough time, basically. So that's maybe. I'm not saying I was disappointed with him. It's just disappointed with the outcome, shall we say?
Right.
I've still got a lot of hope for him. Put it that way.
Oh yeah.
But I just think
too.
he's now fallen in the rotation, which is going to be hard for him to get out of, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, it's already a slippy slope to try and get into the rotation as it is, especially, in that kind of wing guard area. So,
yeah,
I do think it's going to be a struggle.
I see where you're going with DT. I actually quite liked a lot of what I saw from him when he did play, except for the 3-point shot, which just felt like he rushed it a little bit, because we know he's been working on that all off season. So that could come, and it's not something that overly concerns me just yet. But for me, you did actually mention him. Now, we could, before I say who it is, we could easily go back and say, like, oh, well, OB was a disappointment and that's why he got cut. And, but I'm talking about people that are still on the roster. And of the people that are still on the roster, the biggest kind of one that didn't do anything for me was Chris Duarte. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but he didn't exactly register too much on my radar as well. He played better in the last game. Apart from that, I felt like he came on and didn't really impact the game much. And I don't know what I was expecting to see from him, but the fact that he already had a roster spot, I think maybe I thought he'd be a bit better than he was.
Yeah, and that's sort of goes back to me what I said about THT. And I think that he's actually higher up in the rotation than 15th man, and will
Agreed.
get minutes over the likes of Duarte. Obviously, on different positions, but Torrey Craig, Javon Carter. Yeah,
Actually, that's another player. Now that you mention him, I didn't think of Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig was actually a bit disappointing throughout the preseason too.
Yeah, but I think he used a bit sparingly, wasn't he? And I think maybe does it just show that he's not in Billy's plans as such? But you can throw him in, and I mean, I think EJ Liddell's going to be a Torrey Craig light, or what we expect of Torrey Craig, should I say? The ability to hit threes, crash the boards. I think that's what they see in EJ Liddell, maybe, which is why they want to see how he develops. So yeah. Anything else on preseason before we move on?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered everything we needed to cover. Just can't wait to get going with the regular season and really start to judge this team a bit.
Yeah.
Help support the podcast and the brand at C-Red UK by heading to our merch site, where you'll find a variety of designs on things like mugs, t-shirts and hoodies, including our Bulls Ellis and Flop of the Fro, with plenty more designs still to come. Link is in the description.
People's expectations seem to have changed, and that's where we're going to go next, because we've, like I said at the start, we've never really actually said what our expectations were for this season. We've not given any standings, predictions, or what have you. So yeah, what are your expectations?
Okay, my expectations are to watch a team that some nights will look pretty entertaining, come out with wins that maybe we don't expect them to get. But I also think that this team is going to go out and look absolutely shocking on occasion as well throughout the course of the season. I mean, if you come up against a team that is absolutely killing it offensively, really clicking and firing on all cylinders against this defense, they're just going to get blown out. And I do think that there'll be a lot of closer games than people first thought, but I also think that there's going to be a handful of pretty serious blowouts along the way too.
Yeah. Again, I don't think we're going to be as bad as what everyone's sort of making out. It's going to be bad, but at times it's going to be fun. It's going to be good. It's going to be. I think what they're going to have to do is take the chances against a lot of teams where, I mean, like we've already seen the injury report for tomorrow. Zion Williamson is being ill. He's not practiced today. DeJounte Murray's not even with the team at the minute. He is due back apparently. That's the sort of thing they've got to start taking advantage of. Same as when we face Grizzlies next week. Jaren Jackson Jr. is said to be out or only just coming back or whatever. Bucks on Friday. Chris Middleton's not there. I know maybe it don't really make that much of a difference these days, but that's the sort of thing that they've got to start capitalising on if they're going to pick up scrappy wins and wins that you don't expect. But I think there's going to be games where we go against the top tier teams and we cause them problems. I think there's going to be games where we go against top tier teams and get absolutely blown out. And then there's going to be the typical Bulls games where we go in thinking, right, this is a win, Wizards, Pistons, whatever, and we don't win it.
Yeah,
totally. But for me, this season is about development more than anything.
Yes.
And that's including players like Kobe and Ayo. Because to me, they're still developing. They're just developing different aspects of the game, as in the leadership side of it or what have you. When you sort of look at last year's standings, I mean, obviously with this season, the main aim is to keep that top 10 pick, which obviously goes down to the lottery anyway, depending on positioning and stuff like that. The thing is, they've got to be really bad to guarantee they keep that pick, regardless of how pre-season's gone. They always had to. I think, is it bottom 6 guarantees you stay top 10 or something like that. Everywhere else you can kind of move back out of the top 10, and obviously if you're outside the top 10, there's a chance you can move in, as we saw with Hawks.
Yes.
Chances of getting that number 1 pick are always very, very slim. I mean, we're not going to be that bad that we're one of the bottom 3, whatever it is, to get the higher chance of that top pick. So when you look at last year's final standings, obviously Bulls were 9th, Hawks were 10th, Nets were 11th, Raptors were 12th, Hornets 15th, Wizards 14th, Pistons 15th. They're probably the teams that we need to be looking at as, are we better than them? Are we worse than them? And I know when you look on paper and it's hard to say, because with Hornets, for example, a lot of people are expecting them to take a jump, but that relies heavily on LaMelo Ball's health.
Yeah, we all know how well that goes for us when you've got a broken ball in your team.
And Hornets know it as well because he's constantly broken. Brandon Miller could have a breakout season for him and carry him further than, obviously, to the play-in or whatever. And then you've got the teams above him. I think, was it Pacers, Magic, Sixers and Heat were all separated by 1 game last season in the final standings. And they were 7 games above Bulls. So obviously there was a massive gap there. But all it takes is Tyrese Haliburton to go out with his hamstring for a month, 2 months. And that's Pacers struggling. Magic just signed all their players to these new contracts. Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero needs to be paid next year. An injury to any of them, or 2 of them, and that's their season done. It's the main thing, obviously, is teams need to stay healthy, and that's something that Bulls need to do as well. And obviously, if Bulls do stay healthy, you've got to say that maybe Hawks are the most competitive out of that bunch that I mentioned. Nets have pretty much said we want that number 1 pick already. Wizards haven't improved from last season. Pistons always look like they're ready to take a jump, but again, Cade Cunningham goes down, Pistons go down. Raptors, they blew the team up and changed it around, but they're still crap. So there's a strong chance that Bulls could still end up as that 9th seed. There's also a chance that, like I say, Heat, if Jimmy Butler decides he's only going to turn up for the playoffs again, which apparently he's not going to this time because he's had a telling off Pat Riley, but, he'll still get injured. So Heat could drop.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You just don't know. And I think that's AK's mentality with it as well, is like, you've got to look up rather than look down. And you've got to look who's coming down as well. So, prediction-wise then, for the season, how many wins?
Well, prior to the preseason, I kind of had it down as 29 and 53. But I'm now going to go for 34 and 48. And I think that will be good enough to get the 9th seed.
See, I'm going slightly higher than that. I'm saying at least 36 wins. I'm going to put a final figure on it, but at least 36.
Oh yeah, usual Matt, trying to keep your options open so that you can just grease in a difference at the end and say, "Oh, well, I never actually." Come on, pick a number.
Right, 36 wins.
Right.
So it's like 36,
Lock
46,
it in.
isn't it?
Lock it in.
And what did you say? 34?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. We'll see. So, obviously, that takes us into the actual games themselves. Now, obviously, we've got Pelicans tomorrow,
Mhm.
Bucks on Friday, which you'll actually be in Chicago for,
I
even though
will.
it's in Milwaukee.
I won't be taking this
OKC,
spin up to Milwaukee.
OKC on Saturday, which you will be there for, if you haven't
Yep.
already told people. And
I
then because I
may
don't know,
have mentioned it once.
yeah, maybe. And then because I don't know when we'll be recording, but Grizzlies will definitely be before we do record because that's Monday night, Tuesday
I'll
morning for
actually
us, isn't it?
miss that game because I'll be flying through the night. But depending on how much money I spend in Chicago, I may stretch out for the Wi-Fi code and try and watch the game on the flight.
And then we have got Magic to round out our first 5 games. And again, I don't know if we'll be recording before that. It depends on
Yeah.
whether you're allowed or not, basically.
Sorry, I've messed everything up by going away in the week. But look, I had no intention of going back this soon. Only it's the only chance to see Alex Caruso playing in the UC, and we've already mentioned before why I'm going back for that. So don't need to go over it
Yeah.
again.
So, I mean, it's a long time since we've done this, but predictions for the games. Obviously, first up, Pelicans.
Yeah, I actually think we're going to get off to a blazing start. I think we're going to win against the Pelicans, especially with Zion and DeJounte being out.
Yeah, I'm going for a win as well, to be honest. I don't know how Pelicans got on in pre-season. It's going to be painful to watch because Javonte Green is obviously now at the Pelicans, and
Yeah,
so I'll be watching Javonte with tears in my eyes, I think. But uh,
I know.
oh, obviously Bucks on Friday. What you got? Obviously in Milwaukee as well.
In Milwaukee against the Bucks, who we beat in preseason. We probably won't have Lonzo. I think they're going to be Giannis in particular is going to be pissed off. So I'm going to call that one a loss.
Yeah, and just because it's Bucks more than anything. Obviously the game you're at, OKC on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going for?
Dub. I'm there. It's got to be a win.
The Caruso Giddy revenge game.
Yeah. And there was an interview with AC earlier today, and he was kind of like saying, it was going to be a strange feeling coming back, but he was looking forward to it, and he'd stayed in contact with a lot of the guys. He was still friends with them and everything, but he was there to take care of business, basically. So I'm sure he's going to want to make a point of locking down Giddy anyway.
Yeah. For that reason, that's why I've got OKC taking the win.
Yeah.
Then Grizzlies on Monday. What are you saying?
See, this is a tough one. Do we know is Ja back? He's still out, right?
I think he's back, to be honest.
Is he back? Okay,
He might be listed
plain and
as
simple.
day-to-day still, but I think he is back.
Okay, so there's a good chance he'll be back, right? So that with that being said, I'd say that's a loss.
See, I'm going to say we beat them. Just
Okay.
because I think they're in a similar position to us, players coming back off injuries and stuff like that, and possibly still players out. So maybe Lonzo plays in that game as well. Who knows?
Yeah.
And then we'll go with it just in case we don't record before it. But Magic on, I think it's next Thursday.
I say we lose to the Magic as well.
Yeah, probably. So first 5 games, we've both gone 2 and 3, basically. So we'll check back in when we next record.
Yeah, and I've actually pulled up the preseason games for the Pelicans, and they only actually played 1, 2, 3 games, and a fourth game was cancelled against the Magic, and
because of the
they
hurricanes,
lost. Yeah, and they lost all. Oh no, tell a lie. They won the first game against the Magic, 106-104, and then they lost 101-99 to the Heat and 118-98 to the Rockets. So they went 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's only pre-season.
It's only preseason.
But obviously, no practice from Zion. I think was it illness they've put him down as. Like I said, DeJounte Murray is away from the team because of a
Said
family
personal
emergency.
reasons or something, like that, wasn't it?
Family emergency or something. But he is due back.
Yeah.
But then, is he ready to just slot straight back in? Has he had enough game time with them to know the plays and run the plays and stuff like that? So, guess we'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got nothing else. Don't know if you have.
Yeah, the only other thing. Well, I've got nothing else on the upcoming season anyway. I think we've covered everything we need to cover there. But the only other thing that we didn't talk about so far was Matas getting recognition. He got a sneaker deal, as they say in the States. He got a shoe deal with Reebok, and has come out to say that he didn't want to just, follow everybody else and go down the Nike route. So he went with Reebok, that they were standing for what he wanted to stand for and all that sort of thing. So, comparisons can be made to the GOAT, of course, that he went in the opposite direction to everybody else. Because let's face it, Reebok aren't a basketball brand and haven't been for a very long time. So who knows? Maybe Buzelis can bring it back.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen on Reebok, they're trying to, like you say, get back into it, and they're trying to do it with the young players. I think they've also signed up somebody who's going in next year's draft. He's projected top 4 or something at the minute. I remember his name. And then obviously Matas getting his deal now.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to be quite friendly with Shaq as well.
Right.
Which is part of the reason. Obviously, Shaq was a Reebok star, wasn't he, back in the day?
He was, but do you know the story there, don't you, right? When he was due to renew his contract with Reebok, when he saw the price that they wanted to sell the shoes for, he didn't want to be a part of it, and he left the deal on the table and went and signed a deal with something like I think it was like Target or Marshalls or one of the discount kind of type stores, and sold his shoes through them cheaper so that everybody could afford a pair of Shaq shoes. But then I didn't realize that he'd actually bought shares in Reebok since then. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the only other player I can ever remember wearing Reebok is AI.
Right. Yeah, AI was Reebok. That's right.
I mean, and obviously you're going back to 90s basketball with them, aren't you? So
yeah, was Latrell Sprewell wasn't he Reebok as well?
There's possibly, I mean, there's probably loads that was
so.
around at the time, isn't there? But
see, in the 90s, Reebok were pretty big. Like, I mean, Reebok pumps were massive. So, and like you say, the Shaqs were pretty big too. So, yeah, I'm sure if you look back on it, there'd probably be a few players that we forgot about that are quite interesting that they were at Reebok.
Yeah, and I mean, it was interesting in the sort of the photo shoot that Matas has done, where he had all the baggy sort of stuff on, like you'd expect AI to be.
Like AI,
yeah. You know, and yeah, like you said, I like it. It's very sort of reminiscent of MJ trying to be different, basically, and forge his own path. You know, because I guarantee Nike, Adidas would have been offering him deals. You know,
no doubt,
or certainly sniffing around anyway.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I mean, there's no talk of a signature shoe yet, is there? I don't think. He's just basically
No,
getting...
he's wearing. Was it the A1 engine or something like that? Was it
something like
the
that?
name of the
Yeah,
shoe?
them
Yeah.
silver things that he's been wearing that are disgusting. But
They're pretty, oh, do you not like them? I think they're pretty cool.
I won't wear them.
They're better than the Wembies anyway. Have you seen those things? They are absolutely disgusting.
They've tried too much for the alien thing there, haven't they?
Yeah, yeah.
But could be worse. It could be in Big Ballers boots or
Big
whatever they're
baller brand.
called. Yeah, and horrible things that have crippled his sons. So,
There you go.
so yeah.
Allegedly.
Obviously, you will see Matas's silver Reeboks in person on Saturday.
This is true. Again,
So
give me a
obviously-
signed pair.
Yeah, easy. He'll know who you are. Just
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, matters. Neill, Seared
So-
UK. Give me a juice.
Yeah, so obviously you are going on Friday, leaving me
Yeah.
once again to pick up the slack as always.
I know how much you love doing it.
You're back on Monday/Tuesday. I'm
Tuesday
sure
morning.
you'll be putting pictures up on, I know obviously some of your plans, which we're not going to say, but
Yeah.
if you can, you'll be putting pictures up, I'm assuming, on your socials.
Yep, definitely.
Which obviously I will retweet and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, if you're not already, make sure you do follow Neill. His name, Twitter handle, whatever you want to call it, is there. And I'm sure he'll give it a shout out at the end as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, go subscribe. Come and join the Discord. We've now got some fancy emojis on there as well, which you can use for free.
Yeah.
Which the live threads will be kicking off again from tomorrow properly, and yeah, just get involved. As always, I've been Matt. You can find me on Twitter at MattCRedUK, and you can find us on all the socials at CRedUK.
And I'm on Twitter at Neill Seared UK. Thanks to the Fans First Sports Network and, of course, all of Seared UK Nation for tuning in and being a part of this great community. And do remember, it's a Chicago Bulls thing wherever in the world you are. Until next time, Seared people, and go Bulls.